Discover how a new nanny's incredible act transformed a millionaire widower's twin sleepless nights. In the heart of a picturesque suburban neighborhood in New Jersey, Luke Thompson's mansion stood towering, a gilded cage filled with emptiness. He had it all: wealth, status, and a sprawling home filled with silent echoes of laughter that used to bounce off the walls. But since his wife's tragic passing, he was adrift, a ghost in his own life. His 6-year-old twins, Emma and Jack, were shadows of their former selves, their eyes often glistening with unshed tears, haunting sleepless nights filled with visions of their mother. Luke found refuge in his work, thinking that buying the latest gadgets or toys would heal their pain. Yet, as he glided through his luxury car, there was an ache in his chest that money couldn't fill. Emma and Jack roamed the grand rooms of their home, often lost in their games, their spirited laughter replaced by whispers of longing and solitude. Enter Sarah, a determined single mother with grit etched into her every move. From a humble background, she barely made ends meet, raising her son, Ben, in a tiny apartment filled with love but lacking resources. When she stepped into the sprawling world of the Thompsons, she was like a fresh breeze rushing through a stifled room. Luke, preoccupied with his whirlwind of emotions, initially underestimated her. Sarah's unstructured playtime with the twins clashed with his idea of creating distraction through wealth. Money can't buy love. She'd smile at him when she caught his skeptical gaze. Truly, her methods were unconventional. Yet, within her laughter and warm heart, the twins began to shake off the ghost of their mother, their tears giving way to giggles over homemade fortresses made of pillows and sheets. Suddenly, bedtime stories turned into adventure tales, and haunted dreams became sweet reveries as Sarah welcomed them to a world filled with imagination. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days melted into weeks, Luke noticed the transformation in his children filled with color, lightness, laughter. Yet, in the quiet moments, he faced the chorus of his own regrets. He realized how often he had turned away from them, consumed by grief. The flicker of joy was igniting a fire in their hearts, a bond over simple moments that made everything feel richer than gold. But just as he stood ready to connect, disaster struck. Sarah received the news that made her world shatter, a diagnosis for Ben that filled her with dread. The thought of leaving the Thompson home, the comfort and laughter that had bloomed unexpectedly, pierced her heart. Emma and Jack, their bright eyes now glassy with fear and desperation, pleaded for her to stay. "You can't leave us," they cried, voices quaking, echoes of how much she meant to them. In a charged moment, the atmosphere thickened with unspoken truths. Would Luke rise above the prejudices of his world, embrace Sarah and her authentic love, or lose the chance to redefine their families entirely? Each character felt the weight of choice, the narrative teetering on the brink of transformation, leaving the reader yearning for what could lie ahead. The room fell silent, each heart beating louder than the last. Luke watched Sarah, the woman who had brought unexpected joy into their somber lives, hesitating on the brink of departure. It struck him then how much both he and the twins had grown to depend on her, not just as a nanny, but as a beacon of hope. Sarah. The word escaped his lips, holding a weight that he could barely comprehend. He felt the twins' anxious glances as they looked up at him, their small hands clutching Sarah's. It was as if they were all waiting for him to make a move, to do something that would change the trajectory of this moment and potentially their lives forever. "Stay," he said, his voice firmer than he expected. "You're not going anywhere." Sarah turned to him, Surprise etched on her face, and Luke could see the flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. But what about Ben? Luke shifted, feeling the sting of reality cut deep. We can figure something out. We'll help you. The words flowed instinctively, a promise born from the desperation resonating in the room. For a long heartbeat, the three of them, Luke, Sarah, and the twins, stood frozen in their own bubble, separated from the outside world by their intertwined destinies. The bleakness that had settled over the mansion seemed to lift for a moment, replaced by the warmth of an emerging bond. But what can we do? Sarah questioned, her voice trembling. I can't just stick around while my son is. Let us look into options. Luke interrupted, feeling an urgency surge within him. There are treatments. Specialists, we could find someone who can help. A part of him realized he didn't want her to leave because the kids needed her, but also because he couldn't imagine going through that grief all over again, losing another loved one. Emma and Jack moved closer, holding Sarah's hands, as their eyes sparkled with shared determination. We'll help Ben, Jack declared, his energy filling the room with newfound purpose. Yeah, Emma added, excitement bubbling over. We can build him a fort like ours. And we could read him stories, too. Right, Mommy? Sarah's eyes watered, and Luke could see the flicker of a smile breaking through her worry. You guys. Please, Sarah, Luke said, desperation painted deep in his voice. Let us tackle this together. I can't imagine Ben going through this alone, and neither should you. As the tension in the room slowly dissipated, Sarah exhaled deeply, her eyes a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. Okay, she whispered, a hesitant smile dawning on her face. I'll stay for now. Relief washed over Luke, and the twins shrieked in delighted disbelief, their youthful energy returning like a vibrant tide. They began planning a makeshift mission to help Ben, brainstorming elaborate ideas of adventures that he could join them on, their laughter permeating the thick air. But as days slipped by, every moment became laden with unspoken fears. Luke found himself grappling with the reality of loving again, while facing the prospect of loss. As the mansion grew louder with the sounds of laughter and excitement, it also became a reminder of what they were all fighting against. Just when everything seemed to settle, Ben's own diagnosis loomed over them like a dark cloud. One morning, Sarah received a call about a crucial appointment, the kind that would determine the next steps in Ben's treatment plan. The doctor will explain everything, she told the twins as she tucked them into bed. Luke felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The air grew heavy with anxiety. What if the doctor says bad things? Emma asked, her voice small. Luke glanced at Sarah, who nodded in agreement, her bravery shining beneath the surface. We face it together, no matter what, Sarah assured them, but her own voice edged with uncertainty. In that moment, Luke felt the gears shifting again, the stakes rising higher. They were at a crossroads, staring down the uncertain future ahead. Would they have the strength to face whatever lay on the other side of the impending news? The question hung in the air, sparking a wild array of emotions. As night fell, and the house grew quiet, Luke, unable to shake the uncertainty, wondered if he could truly fight through another storm, or if they would ultimately be left shattered once more. And then, as he stared off into the darkness, he received the urgent message that would propel them into the next chapter of their tumultuous journey. How would they confront the trials ahead, and would their bonds prove strong enough to withstand the weight of destiny? Luke barely slept that night. The shadows in his room felt thicker than ever, wrapped tight around his heart. He'd always been a fighter, but doubts whispered in his ear, taunting him with memories of loss and pain. He couldn't let that happen again, not to Ben, not to Sarah, not to the twins who were already so intertwined in this narrative of struggle and hope. The morning sun peeked through the windows, casting light on the chaos of the previous night. In the kitchen, the twins sat at the table, their small bodies animated with a mix of excitement and worry. Luke entered the room, trying to mask his own fears with a practiced smile. "Today is the big day, huh?" he said, forcing the brightness into his voice. Emma and Jack looked up, their expressions a blend of eagerness and anxiety. "What will the doctor say, Daddy?" Emma asked, a glimmer of innocence laced with apprehension. "We'll find out together," Luke replied, trying to sound reassuring. "No matter what." As Sarah joined them, the atmosphere shifted. She bustled in with a mug of coffee, her hair a tangle that spoke of sleepless nights and worry. But there was a fire behind her eyes now, an unyielding determination ignited by their support. She hugged each child tightly, whispering words of comfort that made their little hearts flutter. "Let us be brave today, all right?" she said, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside her. The twins nodded, their small faces reflecting a resilience they inherited from their mother. After breakfast, Luke drove them all to the hospital, the crisp morning air rushing through the open windows. Jack and Emma chatted away, discussing plans for their fort, oblivious to the heavy weight hanging between the adults. Luke admired the children's youthful spirit, their laughter wrapping around him and setting off moments of warmth. Yet, he couldn't shake the haunting image of Ben, fragile and in need of help. Once they arrived, an eerie silence enveloped them in the waiting room. There were families huddled together, each wearing expressions of worry or hope, and Luke felt a knot tighten in his chest. He caught Sarah's gaze, and for a fleeting moment, they were connected by their shared anxiety and determination. Just then, a nurse summoned them, and they moved as one unit towards the examination room. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for Dr. Lewis. Luke's heart raced. Would they hear good news? Bad news? He glanced back at Sarah and the twins. They were holding tightly to each other, a small fortress built against the encroaching dread. "Hey, what if we imagine a new world?" Jack suggested. "Like one where everything is okay. Ben is playing with us in the park." "Yeah," Emma joined in, enthusiasm bursting through her concern. "And he has a magic cape that makes him fly." Their innocent chatter wrapped around Luke like a lifeline. He found himself smiling despite the heaviness hanging over them. Dr. Lewis finally entered the room, carrying a stack of papers and a warm, empathetic demeanor. Luke felt the air thicken again, every heartbeat echoing in his ears. "All right, everyone," the doctor said, looking directly at Sarah. "We have some important information about Ben's condition." The room folded in on itself at that moment. Luke could practically feel the world tipping over. It was as if time had paused, and they were all teetering on the precipice of life-altering news. Dr. Lewis Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. "What is it?" With that one question hanging in the air, Luke wondered if they were ready for whatever lay on the other side, if the love they collectively felt could truly withstand the weight of yet another storm. Would they emerge stronger, or would they find themselves shattered again? The uncertainty screamed at his mind as the doctor began to speak, and at that moment, each of them held their breath, caught in the delicate web of hope and fear. What revelation would reshape their futures? Dr. Lewis paused for a moment, letting the silence deepen in the room. Luke held onto the edge of his chair, a tightness in his throat, making it hard to breathe. He glanced at Sarah. Her fingers trembled slightly, her knuckles white as she gripped the side of the table. "Ben's test results," Dr. Lewis began, the warmth in his voice somehow both comforting and alarming. "They indicate a significant infection, but it's something we can treat effectively." The air shifted. Luke felt a wave of relief wash over him, mixed with the residual tension that had built up over the past few months. A significant infection was the worst news they could have received. Beside him, Sarah's eyes shone as she squeezed Emma's hand tightly, whispering something that Luke couldn't catch. "Doctor," Lewis continued, "with the proper antibiotics, Ben should make a full recovery. However, he'll need to stay in the hospital for a few days, for observation and treatment. His body is still weak, and we want to ensure he is safe." The doctor's words hung in the air like a fragile balloon, full of hope but still needing care. Luke felt his heart pounding in his chest. "So he'll be okay?" he found himself asking, desperate for confirmation. "Yes," the doctor nodded, a gentle smile on his face. "But we need to keep a close watch. This isn't time to relax completely." Tears filled Sarah's eyes, and she let out a shaky breath. The twins, still grappling with the gravity of the situation, exchanged relieved glances. Jack bobbed his head, an understanding settling in. "So we get to see Ben soon?" "Yes," Sarah exclaimed, scooping both children into her arms. "We get to see him, and we'll be right here for him." Luke leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly as he watched his family embrace. The tension that had enveloped them began to dissipate, replaced by cautious optimism. He felt lighter, almost buoyant, as a smile crept onto his face. "Can we bring him his magic cape?" Emma piped up, her face alight with enthusiasm. Both parents chuckled, the laughter easing some of the residual strain. "Absolutely," Sarah said, her voice still tender with emotion. As they left the examination room, Luke felt a warmth spread through him that had been absent for so long. Hope had crept back into their lives, taking its rightful place beside them. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it felt manageable now, filled with tiny moments of joy they could cling to. In the hallway, they caught sight of Ben's small, frail form being wheeled into a room. He looked so small against the crisp white sheets, a quiet warrior in leather-branded pajamas that Luke had insisted on. The twins raced ahead, their excitement bubbling. "Ben!" they chorused, rushing forward. Luke felt Sarah's hand slip into his, their shared joy manifesting in a quiet squeeze. "Hey, buddy," Luke called, his voice steady despite the rush of emotions trying to burst through. He watched their son's face, pale but lighting up in response to their presence. "Are you okay?" Jack asked, taking a brave step closer. "I missed you," Ben mumbled, stifling a yawn. It was a simple statement, but it unraveled a wave of warmth in Luke's chest. He stepped forward, kneeling beside the bed. "You're going to be right as rain in no time, kiddo," he said, ruffling Ben's hair. "Promise?" Ben looked up, his gaze wide and trusting. "Promise," Luke replied, his voice trembling with conviction. As they surrounded the bed, Sarah leaned in, brushing her fingers over Ben's forehead. "We're here now. We're going to take care of you." But just as they all settled into this fragile new reality, a shadow passed over the doorway. A figure stood there, someone Luke had not expected to see. The familiar face drew gasps and murmurs from the nurses nearby. Everyone could see the tension in the air change. Luke's heart raced again, the warmth shifting back to uncertainty as the figure took a step closer. Could this person bring trouble or comfort? "Are we ready for another round?" The stranger's voice rang clear, sending a shiver down Luke's spine. The weight of fear twisted in his gut. This was not just about their son anymore. They were entering a new chapter, and Luke had to determine how deep these ties went now. The room fell silent, the murmurs of the nurses fading into the background. Luke's eyes darted between the stranger and Ben, who was still nestled in his hospital bed, a fragile figure clutching his magic cape. The last thing they needed was trouble. Not now, not when things had started to look up. The figure finally stepped into the light. It was Lucas, Ben's former nanny, hired while Sarah was busy with work commitments. She hadn't been seen since the incident that shook their lives. Hearing her voice sent a mix of dread and nostalgia flooding through Luke. With her short brown hair and bright smile, she had been a whirlwind of energy and laughter around the twins. "Lucas?" Ben's voice broke through the tension, filled with confusion. His trust was evident, just as it always had been. I came as soon as I heard, Lucas said, her tone a blend of relief and urgency. I was worried about you, buddy. She moved closer, kneeling in front of Ben. The glow of the room seemed to soften her edges, making her appear less intimidating. In that moment, she was nothing more than a familiar face in a place that felt so foreign. Why didn't you come before? Jack blurted out, his eyebrows drawn together in concern. It was complicated, Lucas began, glancing to Luke and Sarah, her voice trailing off as if weighing her words. But I'm here now, and I want to make sure you're okay. Luke took a deep breath, trying to assess the situation. Should he let her in, or was this a lapse in judgment? The memories of how Lucas had been pulled from their lives still stung. Shouldn't she have returned when they needed her most? Beside him, Sarah shifted, her expression cautious. What do you mean complicated? It's hard to explain right now, Lucas replied, her gaze shifting to the floor before meeting theirs with earnestness. I had to sort some things out in my own life. But I still care about you all, and especially Ben. Then why come now? Sarah's question was sharp, underscored by protective instincts. I heard about his infection, Lucas admitted, her eyes growing wide with concern. When I found out he was in the hospital, I couldn't leave him without at least saying hi. Mommy, can we keep her? Emma chimed in, clasping her small hands together as if saying a prayer. Her innocent smile seemed to cut through the tension, though it only added another layer of complexity. Luke felt the weight of the room pressing down. Lucas had always been a vibrant part of their lives, but now, it felt like opening an old wound. We're just getting into a better place, he said, his voice steady but lined with hesitance. We can't risk any distractions right now. Lucas nodded, her expression softening as she regarded the family gathered around Ben's bed. I understand. But I want you to know that whatever you're experiencing, you don't have to do this alone. I can help. Ben's eyes sparkled momentarily with enthusiasm. Can you stay? You always made the best snacks. Luke exchanged a questioning glance with Sarah, who seemed lost in thought, her brow furrowed. They had entered this hospital visit not knowing what to expect. Now they were faced with a decision that could either clutter their path to healing or pave a smoother road for Ben. Would they invite in someone from their past, when the thrill of moving forward felt so palpable? As the silence grew thicker, Lucas leaned in a bit closer. Just give me a chance. If nothing else, I can keep Ben company while he gets better. At that moment, the door swung open, and a nurse hurried in, checking on Ben's vitals and breaking the spell that hung in the air. Everything all right? She asked, her voice practical yet gentle. Luke felt his heart racing again, caught between gratitude for her presence and the unanswered questions swirling through his mind. He needed clarity, and fast. Mommy? Emma said, tugging at Sarah's sleeve, her innocent gaze darting back to Lucas. As the nurse finished up, the clock ticking in a steady rhythm, Luke realized making a decision was unavoidable. Should they find comfort in an old ally or guard their fragile hopes against uncharted waters? All right, he finally said, his voice steady yet unsure. Let us talk this through. But as he spoke, another familiar face appeared in the doorway, one that made his breath hitch again, doubling down on the complexity of their situation. How could I miss this? The newcomer's tone was laced with mischief and concern at the same time, pulling everyone's attention immediately. Luke clenched his fists, heart racing once more. What now? Could they handle another wave of surprises? A new storm was brewing, and Luke could feel every raindrop approaching. The door swung wide open, and there stood Amanda, Ben and Emma's old neighbor. Her blonde hair was disheveled, as if she'd rushed straight from her house, and her hazel eyes sparkled with urgency. Luke's heart dropped in confusion. The last time he had seen Amanda, she had been comfortable in her own world, yet now she seemed anything but. Wow, I didn't expect a reunion today." She stepped into the room with a sunbeam of energy that momentarily lit up the atmosphere. "Can't say we were expecting one either," Luke replied, his tone more curt than he intended. His mind was already spinning. This was getting out of hand. The fragile hope they had for Ben felt like it was being stretched to its limits. "Is Ben okay?" Amanda asked quickly, concern replacing her bright demeanor as she moved closer to the bed. "His infection is under control, but it's still tough," Sarah explained, still looking between Lucas and Amanda. She hesitated, trying to find the right words to describe their intricate web of relationships, one that was starting to feel overwhelming. "Too many surprises?" Amanda guessed, her eyes flickering between Lucas and Luke. "I can help if you need an extra pair of hands." "Help? We've got enough help here," Luke interjected, guarding their space fiercely. A part of him knew she was well-meaning, but everything felt precarious, teetering on the edge of chaos. "Luke," Sarah said softly, "maybe this is a sign we should let some people in." She directed her gaze to Lucas, who remained crouched beside Ben, time having made her a little more familiar and their old affection a little more palpable. A flicker of hope sparked in Ben's eyes as he realized his favorite people were flocking to him. "Sweetie," Amanda turned to Ben, kneeling down to be eye level with him. "You're going to be up and playing again before you know it, right?" Ben smiled, gripping his magic cape tighter. "With snacks." The adults exchanged glances, their hearts squeezing at the innocent joy radiating from Ben. The good kind of tension was slowly unraveling as laughter bubbled up when Jack shared a goofy joke about hospital food. "We could really use some laughs," Jack chimed in, relief dancing in his eyes. "Perhaps it would be all right after all." "Exactly," Amanda winked at him, then shifted her gaze back to the rest of them. "What's life without some snacks and a little chaos, right?" But Lucas seized the brief moment of levity to break in again. "I can tell some stories from when I was the Nanny. You all remember the pizza party with the wrong toppings? Or when you pretended to be a pirate?" Emma added gleefully, her eyes glistening as memories surfaced. Luke watched the laughter unfold, the painful strains of the hospital atmosphere lightening bit by bit. Maybe, just maybe, they were finding a way to let in some warmth again. Yet, a voice inside warned him to stay rooted. They'd just started to rebuild. Suddenly, the nurse re-entered, checking on Ben's floor. "Looks like you have quite the fan club today," she teased, her warmth pulling smiles all around. Luke leaned closer to Sarah, whispering, "This feels precarious. Is it truly wise?" "I think we can give them a chance," she murmured back, her voice steady yet unsure, echoing the inner conflict Luke was battling. Was this an opening for distractions, or a true chance for healing? With uncertainty hanging in the air, he felt the delicate balance they'd been building sway. "Okay," Luke said, raising his voice to gather everyone's attention. "I understand the need for support, but not everyone can stay." Amanda's eyes dimmed slightly, while Lucas simply nodded, her brows furrowing in concern. The air thickened again, expectation crackling. Just then, a loud crash echoed down the hallway, and a doctor hurried past, shouting urgently for a crash cart. The jubilant moment shattered as their world shifted once more, and Luke's heart dropped. "Is everything all right?" he asked, a knot tightening in his stomach. "Let us not worry just yet," the nurse said, trying to reassure him. But Luke couldn't shake the growing sense of dread. As the commotion escalated outside, he glanced between Sarah and the others, his heart pounding. Would he lose the connection being rekindled? Was this a sign of fleeting happiness, soon to be displaced by uncertainty again? The looming question remained. How many more surprises could they endure before it all broke apart? The air thickened with tension, clinging to Luke like a heavy blanket. He stood frozen, watching the door where the doctor had disappeared, the laughter for moments before feeling like a distant echo. It didn't take long for his mind to fester fears, churning with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. The crash cart meant something serious, and his stomach twisted into knots. "Do you think it's Ben?" Emma whispered, clutching her stuffed animal like a lifebuoy in a choppy sea. "No, it can't be," Sarah soothed, but her voice lacked conviction. Luke felt a bitter taste of helplessness in the back of his throat. They wouldn't he call for that unless his voice fell off, lost in the dread ballooning within him. Ben remained oblivious, his attention still half seized by Amanda's presence, the laughter of his previous moment just a flicker now. "Are we telling more stories?" he asked, his youthful innocence a stark contrast to the chaos outside. "Yes, buddy," Jack said, but even the optimism in his voice faltered. Things had shifted, and now it was almost painful to muster the energy to be cheerful. Amanda knelt beside Ben again, brushing his hair back gently. "You're a strong kid, Ben. You'll pull through whatever this is," she said, her tone just as much for herself as it was for him. Luke saw the flicker of sincerity in her eyes, and it soothed something in him, however briefly. Suddenly, the door swung wide, and the doctor stepped in, her face a mask of seriousness. Every breath in the room seemed to hold, the wave of anticipation crashing over them. "Family of Ben?" she called, her voice steady but firm. Luke pushed to the front, his heart racing. "That's us," he replied, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. The doctor took a deep breath, her gaze flitting across Luke's worried expression. "Ben is stable, but we've had a bit of a scare. His vital signs dipped, and we had to act fast." Relief flooded through Luke, though it felt fragile, like it could shatter with another moment's bad news. "What does that mean?" he heard himself ask, the words rushing out as if he was afraid of the answer. "We've got his infection under control, but we will need to monitor him closely for the next 24 hours. She paused, her eyes softening. "It's common for kids in his condition to have moments of crisis. Just keep talking to him, okay?" "Just keep talking," Luke repeated in a whisper, the phrase anchoring itself in his mind. He turned to find Ben's face, still brightened by Amanda's presence, and something ignited within him. "Ben, buddy," Luke said, stepping closer, keeping his voice steady. "We're here. Everyone is right here, and we're going to tell some stories. You like that, right?" Ben's eyes lit up at the sound of his name. "Can we have pizza?" Jack chimed in immediately. "Only if I can be the captain of the pizza ship," he declared, pretending to steer an imaginary ship, Captain Jack navigating through clouds of cheese. "I want seaweed toppings." Lucas joined in, raising an eyebrow dramatically. Laughter erupted in the room again, allowing a thread of light to weave through their heaviness. Just then, Sarah leaned closer to Luke. "You see?" she said, a smile breaking through the concern. "This is what they need. We all need it." Luke looked at Ben, who was still smiling despite everything. "I guess if it helps then we'll keep going," he replied, trying to match her optimism. "All right, I can bring the ocean to the pizza ship." Amanda joined in, determinedly bouncing on the edge of energy as if to coax the laughter back. Outside, the hospital seemed to crumble under the weight of the unknown, but inside this small room, a spark ignited a beacon of hope among their fears. They shared stories and laughter, momentarily pushing the darkness out. But as the room felt a little lighter, Luke couldn't shake the nagging feeling it felt almost too good. Just as the joy began to settle into a comfortable rhythm, the nurse returned again, her expression unreadable. "I need to speak with you." "Sir, ma'am," she motioned for Sarah, and Luke. A cold wave washed over him. "What is it?" Luke's heart stopped, every bit of laughter suddenly feeling heavy and invasive. As they followed the nurse out of the room, Luke stole a quick glance back at Ben, who was still engaged in his world of make-believe, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beyond their laughter. What news awaited them now? And would it keep their fragile connection from unraveling completely? The air outside Ben's room was charged. Each step Luke took alongside the nurse felt heavier than the last. He glanced at Sarah, her face a mix of concern and confusion mirroring his own. The nurse led them down the stark hallway, the fluorescent lights flickering like the hope that wavered in Luke's heart. "Is Ben okay?" he asked, unable to suppress the tremor in his voice. The nurse paused, her eyes softening slightly but still guarded. "I can't provide all the details here. I just need to take you to a more private space." Luke's stomach sank. More private? The words hung in the air like an accusation, the worst kind of scenario looming in the back of his mind. They entered a small conference room, sterile and devoid of comfort. The nurse motioned for them to sit, and he felt the weight of dread settle heavily on his chest. "What is happening?" he pressed, his eyes pleading for clarity despite his genuine fear. The nurse finally spoke, her tone becoming serious yet gentle. "Ben's vital signs are stable for now, but we noticed unusual readings during his last test. The doctors want to run more tests to rule out anything serious that may be affecting his recovery." "Run tests?" Sarah echoed, her voice a whisper. "What kind of tests?" "We're looking for any underlying issues that might complicate his condition, perhaps related to the infection." The nurse's hands clasped in front of her, her posture tense. "We need to ensure nothing is being overlooked." The silence hung thick like smoke, and Luke's mind exploded with questions. Every moment spent in fear felt like an eternity, and he could barely breathe. "Can't you tell us if it's serious? Why can't we wait with him?" "Please," the nurse interjected, her stewardship warm yet firm. "He will be closely monitored, and you will be informed as soon as any results come in. The doctors are doing everything they can." Luke felt the world tilt. "I don't want to lose him," he blurted out, emotion spilling over. "He needs to be okay. Your strength as a family will help carry him through this," she replied softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Kids feel everything. Keep talking to him, just like you were doing before." The nurse left the room, and Luke turned to Sarah, whose face was pale but resolute. "We have to stay positive for Ben," she said, her voice firm but laced with desperation. "He needs us," Luke agreed, feeling a fire ignite in their shared uncertainty. They stepped back into the hall, the laughter from earlier now replaced with deeper echoes of worry. As they returned to the room, Ben was still reclining against Amanda, who was animatedly gesturing and spinning fantastic tales of gallant knights and dragons. The ambience was lighter, but Luke could feel the tension still coiling around them like a serpent ready to strike. "Hey, bud," Luke called out, forcing warmth into his voice as he returned to Ben's side. "What is happening in your story?" "The knight just found a treasure," Ben explained, grinning widely. "Is it a treasure of pizza?" Luke asked with a grin, echoing the earlier lightheartedness, hoping it would resonate. "Yes," Ben laughed. "And gummy bears." They shared a moment, laughter blossoming amidst the dark clouds. Yet, the shadow of uncertainty loomed above them. As Amanda continued to weave her magical narratives, Sarah leaned close to Luke. "What if the tests come back with something bad?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "We don't know what they'll find." Luke swallowed hard, the words lodged like stones in his throat. "But whatever happens, we face it together." Once again, the door creaked open. Luke's heart tore away from the comfort of laughter, the nurse re-entering the room with a somber expression. "Can I talk to you two again?" she said quietly, the weight of her words nearly crushing him. Luke's heart raced. What was coming next? The moment felt fragile, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. The atmosphere turned electric once more as the nurse stepped back inside, her presence somehow making the air feel heavier. Luke exchanged a fleeting glance with Sarah, both of them ready for whatever storm was brewing. Please, sit down," the nurse urged, her voice resonating with an urgency that sent shivers down Luke's spine. He dropped back into his chair, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. "I know how hard this is for you, but I need to be straightforward," she continued, casting her eyes around the room before finally landing on them. "What is it?" Luke's voice trembled, betraying his anxiety. "Ben's blood work shows some unexpected abnormalities," she said, her words like ice water splashed across his skin. "We're concerned it might indicate an underlying issue, potentially something that needs immediate attention. The doctors are considering options." "What kinds of options?" Sarah interrupted, her voice rising if only a notch. "What is wrong with him?" The nurse took a slow breath. "There are possibilities we need to explore. This could range from further complications stemming from the previous infection to more serious conditions, like an autoimmune response. We want to approach this methodically." Luke felt sick. Every word she uttered felt like a stone dropped into the deep end of a well. Couldn't he make sense of it? "Will he be okay?" he finally managed to ask, his voice breaking. "We're doing everything we can to ensure his safety," she said softly. "But it's crucial we gather more information. I need you both to prepare yourselves for some tests. This could take a few hours." We'll wait," Luke stammered, feeling the solidity of certainty slip through his fingers like sand. "Good. The doctors will come to talk to you as soon as they have more information. In the meantime, would you like someone to sit with Ben while we run these tests?" "Yes," Sarah replied, her voice steadier now, as if she had found an anchor in the storm. "We'll stay close." "All right, then. I'll have someone here with him," the nurse assured them before stepping toward the door. Just as she reached for the handle, she turned back, her expression somewhat softer. "Remember, kids are incredibly resilient. Whatever you hear, keep talking to him. Let him know you're here." Luke nodded, though every passing second brought another wave of worry crashing in. He turned to look at Ben, who was still wrapped in his dreams, Amanda quietly mumbling words of encouragement as if she were shielding him from the chaos outside. "Hey, champ. You still with us?" Luke called, trying to keep his voice bright. Ben stirred, blinking awake slowly, his eyes dreamy and confused. "Dad? What happened?" "You were telling Amanda about your treasure," Luke said, reaching out, his fingers brushing Ben's knuckles softly, grounding himself in the moment. "Did I win?" Ben murmured, a small smile breaking through his sleepy face. "Absolutely. You won the biggest treasure of all," Luke said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "A major pizza and gummy bear haul." Laughter bubbled up again, and Luke felt a flicker of the warmth they had shared moments before. But Sarah's eyes caught his, filled with unsaid fears. As they crackled with laughter, Luke's mind was elsewhere, grappling with uncertainty. His heart sank, worrying about what lay ahead. Just then, the door opened again, and a doctor stepped in, wearing scrubs that seemed to almost steal the light from the room. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson?" the doctor said, scanning the room. "May I have a moment with you?" Luke's heart dropped. The laughter faded into a solemn hush, the air thick once more with apprehension. He glanced at Sarah, and in that fleeting moment, their fears collided, leaving an unspoken question hanging in the air. Was this the moment they had been dreading? What does the doctor need to say? Luke wondered aloud, desperation creeping into his tone. As he stood, he steeled himself for whatever was to come next, knowing that their lives could shift in a moment. The weight of uncertainty pressed down hard. Was this the beginning of a fight they would have to face? Luke's heart raced as he felt the gravity of the moment. The doctor's presence towered over him, almost as if summoning dread by default. "Please, sit down," she instructed, her tone gentle yet firm. Beneath that calm exterior, there was an undeniable tension. No one could placate the anxiety brewing in Luke's chest as he settled into the chair beside Sarah. Ben's test showed some abnormalities. As I mentioned, the doctor started. Her eyes locked onto theirs. We need to discuss potential next steps. Luke's world tilted. This phrase felt like the knife's edge poised to plunge. Will he be all right? He blurted out, desperation threading through his words. The doctor hesitated. Luke noticed the weight in her gaze only added to the pressure. We're doing further testing right now to rule out any underlying conditions. Any conditions? What does that mean? Sarah's voice trembled as she leaned forward, yearning for clarity that felt evasive. It could be related to the infection, or it may point towards something more serious, the doctor replied, her professionalism unwavering but her concern palpable. I cannot give you a definitive answer until we have more results. Luke felt as if he had been struck. Each word dissolved into shadows, and the walls around him constricted. He reached for Sarah's hand, their fingers intertwining in a desperate plea for strength. Can we see him? Sarah asked, her voice steady but laced with anxiety. Of course. I'll have someone take you back. But I urge you to remain calm. The doctor's words barely registered as they followed her out of the room. With every step, Luke felt a weight pressing down. Would they survive another crisis? Just as they entered Ben's room, he caught a glimpse of familiar faces, Amanda laughing softly, Lucas beside her, recounting a hilarious story about pirate adventures gone awry. Daddy! Mommy! Ben's voice echoed, untainted by fear. Relief washed over Luke. There, in his son's eyes, glistened innocence, untouched by the gravity that weighed on the adults. Hey, champ, Luke replied, pushing the storm of uncertainty aside. How is our treasure hunter doing? I'm still searching for the pizza treasure, Ben beamed, the anticipation lighting up his face. Luke couldn't help but smile. His son's spirit was indomitable. Sarah crouched beside Ben's bed, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. And we're right here with you, buddy, just like always. As the laughter resumed, the atmosphere shifted, making fear retreat for a moment. The magic of childhood enveloped them, shielded by love as Jack chimed in with outlandish ideas of candy-coated pirates. Luke glanced at Sarah, a shared understanding of the fragility surrounding them. Amid the warmth ignited by laughter, worry still tickled at the back of his mind. After some time, the doctor returned, approaching with measured steps. How is everything going in here? She asked, a small smile playing on her lips as she noted the playful energy in the room. We're just getting started on Ben's pirate adventure, Amanda exclaimed, her own spirit brightening the atmosphere. Good to hear, the doctor said. But I need to talk to you and Sarah privately for a moment. Tension sleeve strapped Luke again, and he held his breath as he agreed. The moment could change everything, slowly peeling away their shield of joy. As they stepped to the side, the muffled laughter faded. Ben is stable, but still has irregularities that we need to monitor closely. We'd like to consider a few treatment options, including a specialist, she informed them carefully. Sarah nodded, her expression resolute. Whatever it takes, she said without hesitation. Luke chose his words carefully, weighing his emotions. We'll do anything for him. The doctor smiled gently, bolstered by their fierce commitment. That's the spirit we need. Kids this age are remarkably resilient, and you both are providing him with the strongest source of strength. He wished he could possess that same force. After they finished speaking, Luke returned to Ben's bedside, finally managing to draw in a full breath. But encountering the innocence in his son's eyes gave him hope more than any medical reassurance ever could. Ready to go on an adventure? He asked, holding on to that treasured connection. Yeah, Ben exclaimed, excitement bubbling forth like a shaken soda can. It was there, amidst the laughter and uncertainty, that something indescribable began to lift. The weight of hope crept back and it felt like the dawn after a long night. Luke knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would take them on as a family, each coming together amidst the chaos. Just as the evening wound down, the sense of unity enveloped the room. Lucas shared more stories about their time together, and laughter bounced off the sterile walls, filling each crevice with joy. And just as Ben declared he would take on a whole crew of imaginary pirates, Sarah, Luke, and the children resolutely stood together. At that moment, they understood love was their greatest weapon in this fight, far more powerful than the fear that sought to divide them. As they fortified their resolve, Luke glanced around, absorbing every smiling face, every beaming spirit, and realized they were ready for whatever lay ahead. With a heart full of love and a determination stronger than ever, they knew they would face this tide together. Now, this story of transformation and hope has unfolded before you, but don't let it stop here. You need to subscribe now to make sure you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let the world know the power of hope. Comment below with your feelings about this incredible journey and how it inspires you. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share, because only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. Thank you for being on this journey with us.